Forced to work from home by your employer? Laid off or feeling depressed at home? Do you want to make money working from anywhere? We'll show you how to do it from your couch. It's time for another episode of the Work From Home Show. Coming to you from their homes in Austin, Texas and Tampa, Florida, here are your hosts, Adam and Naresh.
Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Work From Home Show. I'm Naresh with Adam Schrader, and today we have Michael Gelb on the show. He's the founder and president of the High Performance Learning Center, #1 New York Times bestselling author of How to Think Like a Leonardo da Vinci, 7 Steps to Genius Every Day. Also bestselling author of The Art of Connection, 7 Relationship Building Skills Every Leader Needs to Know, as well as the book Creativity on Demand, How to Ignite and Sustain the Fire of Genius. In the new book, Mastering the Art of Public Speaking, 8 Secrets to Transform Fear and Supercharge Your Career. Michael Gelb, welcome to the Work From Home Show.
Thank you. Great to be with you.
You are a prolific author. I just listed off the very, very high-selling books you have written. You've done a lot, and every single one of them is relevant to working from home or succeeding in business at home. So let's first start with your latest book, Mastering the Art of Public Speaking. How important is public speaking in this post-virus environment? And especially now that more and more people are working from home, how important is public speaking, and what tips do you have?
Well, it's critically important, and it actually becomes even more important to know how to get your message across, because it's a little more challenging to do it in a virtual medium, which is what most of the world is constrained to doing for the next little while. And even after, when we're in a post-pandemic world, there's going to be a lot more virtual communication, which is great. I was lucky, I guess, that I was able to make a few edits in the manuscript before I sent it in, and those edits were done in April and May. So we were able to just make whatever changes needed to be made in the manuscript of Mastering the Art of Public Speaking to address the pandemic. The good news is I didn't really have to change much at all. All I really had to say was everything you're learning that applies to speaking live, whether it's a formal speech, a business lecture, a information sharing session, a meeting, a best man or bridesmaid speech, a eulogy, everything that we cover in Mastering the Art of Public Speaking just becomes that much more important if you're in a virtual modality and working from home.
What about the whole thing of, like, right now we're doing an interview on Skype, no video or anything. If you're just in like a conference call, how do you present? Because the conference calls are going to become and are becoming more and more common. A lot of them are video, but some of them aren't. What's the key to presentation whenever you can't do it visually and doing the public speaking that way?
Preparation. Figuring out, why are you having this meeting? What is your objective? Who's the audience? What do you want to have that audience know, feel, and do as a result of your contribution to the meeting? What are your objectives in terms of what you want to learn? All of the practices of communication become more important, and it requires more discipline. So if you're at a live meeting, people don't, unless they're really rude, they don't usually just yawn and stretch and check their phones while someone is speaking at the meeting. But if we can't see each other, you don't know what people are up to.
Yeah, I could be doing a workout right now and just have something on, and who knows, right?
I mean, look, I do a lot of conversations like this with people all over the world, I shut off my email, I turn my phone off, I turn it over, and I tune in to bring my full presence and attention to connect with you and the people who are investing their time and energy in listening to this conversation. And look, we have a shared objective, which is to empower, support, and enlighten people who are working from home, which is now a lot of people.
So what are some of the big misconceptions, or what are some of the big things that people need to know about public speaking? Like you talk about the 8 secrets to transforming fear. I would guess that public speaking is one of the biggest fears or most common fears that people have. What do people kind of need to know about public speaking to make it less scary?
Well, first thing they need to know is that it's okay to feel scared. You're in the majority. 74% of Americans suffer from glossophobia, the fear of public speaking. In the book of lists, public speaking ranks number 1 amongst people's fears. Death is 7th on the list. Means the average person rather be dead and buried than have to give the eulogy. But if we put it to you that way, you'd probably be willing to give the speech. And the reason it's such a prominent fear is that it's something that people are often confronted with, and they're just terrified of being embarrassed. The fear of being humiliated in a public forum is actually one of the strongest fears that adults have, and public speaking provides what many people think of as a perfect opportunity for humiliation. So the good news is some of the finest professional public speakers, actors, performers in the world have overcome the fear of public speaking. And the first step is just to notice, accept the fact that you have the fear, notice that the symptoms of it, maybe your heart starts to pound. Even when you think about it, you get a queasy feeling in your stomach, your mouth starts to get dry. These are all classic stress-related symptoms associated with fight, flight. Because if you're afraid of public speaking, somebody says, we need you to speak to the whole department on a Zoom meeting tomorrow, your first automatic evolutionary instinct is to run away, or you can't really fight. You might freeze, but we want you to learn how to flow with the situation. So the first thing is, okay, wow, those are the symptoms of the fight-flight response. How fascinating. And then there's a simple cognitive psychology intervention you make with yourself. And that is to say, wow, these are classic symptoms of fight and flight. What if I reinterpret them as excitement? What if I think of this as an exciting opportunity to strengthen my influence and to connect with the people in this meeting? Who's going to be there? Why are they coming? What do they want to get out of this session? And if you begin to tune into the audience, something amazing happens. You stop focusing on yourself and your pounding heart and your dry mouth and your butterflies in your stomach. And the butterflies start to fly in formation as you begin to think about, what are my objectives? What do I want these people to know? How do I want them to feel? What do I want them to do? So you shift the whole orientation, and then you're set up to apply the other secrets in the book.
I would say one of the biggest things that's helped me was back in high school, and a lot of parents can use this with their kids. Back in high school, I took debate, and that was probably the number one thing that helped me with public speaking, because you have to prepare, you have to be ready, and you have to be willing to speak. Like, there's no, if you don't speak in debate, things don't end well. And it was just that class, I did it for 2 years. I think I did it junior and senior year, and it was one of the most helpful classes I took in public school, way better than any math or science or history class I took. It helped me the most in life. So I highly recommend, if you can get your kids in it, or if you can start doing it yourself, for people to get involved in that.
And you remember from debate, you probably learned how to argue both sides, multiple sides of the issue. And what that does is it helps you generate more understanding of people who might disagree with you. And the more you understand other people's perspectives and positions, the better able you are to influence them and make your own point. So listening and tuning into an audience and anticipating objections and building them into your presentation is one of the ways that you master the art of public speaking.
Well, you bring up a good point about understanding both sides. And I think it's just kind of sad that you have to take a debate class to understand that concept, that there are not just two sides, but multiple sides to any issue, and accepting that there are multiple sides and not just your side. In today's politically charged world, it's not just in the United States, the masses of people clearly did not take debate. But again, I just find it sad that it's not common sense to understand this concept.
Well, and here's the principle of common sense is you can have your own opinion. You're not allowed to have your own facts.
But VP Mike Pence said that in the debate a couple of maybe last year. Yeah. So anyway, moving on to a different topic, moving from public speaking to some of your other books. Let's talk about creativity and creative energy, because you've written a lot on creativity. Your best-selling book, Creativity on Demand, How to Ignite and Sustain the Fire of Genius. Can you share some effective practices to our listeners who are working from home, listening from home, on how they can cultivate their own inner creative energy?
Sure. Well, in Creativity on Demand, what I did was to, having studied and taught and written about creativity throughout my career, I went to masters of a number of psychophysical integration disciplines like Tai Chi and Qigong, yoga, meditation, the Alexander technique. And I asked these folks, what is the most effective, efficient practice that the average person could do in 20 minutes or less to raise their baseline of creative energy? Because creative thinking, I teach a lot about creative thinking in my book, How to Think Like Leonardo da Vinci, abstracting the principles from Leonardo's notebooks, his advice to students on how you think more creatively. And thinking creatively is something that's wonderful to learn, and I think it's important for everyone to learn. But what I observed is that to translate your creative idea into a reality requires energy, a lot of stamina, a lot of perseverance. So that was my fascination with, okay, how do you cultivate the energy? And who are the people who have put the most time and energy into mastering what we might call energy arts? And what practices do they recommend for strengthening our core energy? So Creativity on Demand is the best of what I got from an amazing group of master teachers in that realm. And then I was inspired to actually evolve some new original practices that seem to have resonated with lots of people. So that's creative thinking is one thing, very important. Creative energy is what you need to make your creative idea into a reality. And public speaking is what you need to be able to do to get lots of people engaged and enrolled in whatever that creative idea is. So you're starting to see how all this stuff fits together.
So when you're looking at doing the more creative stuff, like I see on your website, you're a juggler, which I've never been able to do so far in my life. But is being creative in one aspect of life, does that transfer over to other aspects? Like, is it just kind of one big muscle that can be used across the board, or do you have to kind of focus on the, I guess, specific types of creativity?
That's a wonderful question because, well, first of all, the answer is no, it doesn't automatically transfer. And it isn't just one big muscle. And there's different, well, they're core principles. Those are the 7 principles for thinking like Leonardo da Vinci. Those are the core principles that will help you be more creative in any dimension of life. But if you happen to be creative artistically, it doesn't mean you'll be creative in finding solutions to everyday life challenges or to business challenges. So that's why I teach the 7 principles for thinking like Leonardo da Vinci, but then I work with different groups on the application of those principles to their particular set of challenges. So we'll apply the 7 principles for thinking like Leonardo da Vinci to helping scientists make progress in their research, for example, or helping marketers come up with new strategies for selling a particular product, or helping salespeople, or helping anybody from school teachers to attorneys to construction managers, all of whom either currently are or have been clients of mine.
What made you pick Leonardo da Vinci? Why his writings? I mean, there have been a ton of creative people throughout history, so why him?
Tell me one who's more creative than Leonardo.
Fair enough.
Right? That would be a fun debate. I'll take you on. I have some nominees for other possible people, but this is going to, like, you could go, if you're a basketball fan, basketball fans love greatest of all time debates: Michael Jordan, LeBron James, Wilt Chamberlain, Bill Russell, Oscar Robertson, Larry Bird, Magic Johnson, Kobe Bryant. But generally, if you take people who play now and people from the most recent generation, because that's who people identify with the most, you're talking Michael versus LeBron, and other people would love to debate their case for, and actually this is all over, I'm a big basketball fan, it's all over the internet. There are people who making, there's even a series called Making the Case, and they make the case for why Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, for example, is the greatest of all time. But when it comes to who's the most creative human being of all time, Leonardo da Vinci is like Michael Jordan, Larry Bird, LeBron James, and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar all rolled into one person.
Who would his competitors be? You said you could name off a few other people.
Goethe, the great German polymath, was a stunning literary genius, scientific genius, poet, composed music, amazing. But why does Leonardo just surpass him dramatically? Because as great as Goethe is, first of all, probably most of the people tuning in may never even heard of him. So I guess he needs a better press agent.
Yeah, I was going to say I've never heard of him. So yeah, Leonardo wins that one.
Goethe, if you want to look him up. Amazing genius character. But why Leonardo? Because 2 of the absolutely greatest works of art in human history, pretty much by consensus, Mona Lisa, the most recognized work of art on the planet, more than 500 years after it was created. The Last Supper, in the highest echelons of image ever created by a human being. So even though Leonardo didn't actually leave us that many paintings, of the, I think about 19 that currently exist, 2 of them are pretty much consensus greatest of all time, short list for just about anybody from anywhere around the world. And as an anatomist, as a scientist, there was something, people send me this stuff all the time. I'm always on the lookout for it, but just 2 months ago, at a medical school, they were looking at some of Leonardo's drawings of the human heart. And they became aware that the precision of his drawing helped to illuminate an understanding of how the heart functions that was news to contemporary medical science. So, and his anatomical drawings are still used in medical schools to this day. And that's just one element of his science. He was doing geology, he was doing botany before those sciences formally existed. And he invented the parachute before anybody could fly. He was also gifted as a storyteller, as a musician, as a poet, as an athlete. And he was even reported to be a charming and delightful and lovely human being. So
that's pretty impressive for a creative person. They're usually not the nicest people in a lot of cases.
Well, that's part of what I consider to be an unfortunate and outdated model. The reason a lot of people we call creative may have been perceived as less than nice is because they receive so much resistance to their new thinking, to their creative thinking, that it can make them a little bit edgy. Society doesn't always embrace people who see things differently and who challenge the accepted habitual way of looking at the world. But that's why I developed this curriculum where you learn to think creatively, you learn to cultivate the creative energy, and you learn to communicate your ideas to other people, both to groups, that's mastering the art of public speaking, but also one-on-one, that's the art of connection, 7 relationship building skills every leader needs now. So my life's work is to create this curriculum of self-improvement, and not in some general way, but in terms of the really practical skills that people need to be successful and fulfilled in a world that is always challenging.
Yeah, now talking a little bit about mental strength and our minds, especially being at home, I feel like not only do our muscles atrophy if we're not going out, walking, running, exercising, but our minds, they can somewhat atrophy if we just get used to this idea of being stuck in one place. I don't think humans were meant to be plants. So what are your tips, which you talk about in one of your books, your tips on how we can improve our minds as we age?
Right, yeah, that was a book I wrote, I guess it was 8 years ago. It's called Brain Power, Improve Your Mind as You Age. And I wrote it to celebrate my 60th birthday because I figured I've always been interested in how to improve with age, but once you hit 60, now it's really personal and serious. So you can bet I went really deep into all of this. I interviewed leading gerontologists, neuroscientists, physicians, and also just successful, happy, healthy, older people. And I looked at what they do and what they don't do. I looked at all the research and I tried to consolidate what are the most important things that all of us can do. First of all, to prevent dementia, because it's a scourge in our society. And if it's something in your family, if you have a history of it, then this is not just general self-improvement. This is critically important. And the sooner you start these practices, and most of them are just their common sense wellness practices, starting with a positive attitude about aging. Because if you don't have a positive attitude, you're not going to do all the other things that you need to do in order to actually improve your brain as you age. One of the things we know, look, Leonardo, in his notebooks over 500 years ago, he writes, iron rusts from disuse. Water that does not flow becomes stagnant. Thus it is with the human mind. So that is what you were suggesting earlier, use it or lose it. The good news is you don't even lose it. It just becomes dormant if you embrace the process of learning. Like, for example, learning how to juggle. You mentioned that before. If it doesn't come easy to you, now you know that's wonderful, because it means it's getting aspects, parts of your brain to come into engagement. You're calling on parts of your brain that you normally don't use. And yes, it feels awkward and it can be frustrating if you think you're supposed to have success right away when you learn something, which of course is absurd. It takes time to learn stuff. If you want to learn how to juggle, you have to drop a lot of balls. If you want to learn how to play the piano, you have to play a lot of wrong notes. If you want to learn how to speak a new language, you will have to mispronounce a lot of words. Babies, fortunately, know this intuitively, so nobody gets too upset if a baby falls down while they're learning to walk or mispronounces a word. We just give them lots of love and encouragement. So as grown-ups, if we can give ourselves the same love and encouragement and persist, we strengthen our brain as we learn to juggle, play the piano, learn a new language. It almost doesn't even matter what you learn, but what's critically important is that you are learning something new every day. And then, of course, regular exercise, find something you love to do. Life is about movement. Diet is sort of not the best word. Let's call it nutrition. Let's just call it eating for enjoyment, health, and energy. So just obvious things. When I went around, I'm interviewing all these nutritionists and gerontologists. I also asked, I say, what do you eat? What do you not eat? What supplements do you take? And I compiled the best of what I learned, and I'm always experimenting with this myself. But the simplest advice on what to eat and what to not eat is, as Michael Pollan says in The Omnivore's Dilemma, don't eat anything that your grandparents wouldn't recognize as food.
Nice.
So that's just some of what's in Brain Power. We go into depth, and there's a research reference for every point made in the book.
So how, as an outsider now, like say you're a business owner and you have employees working from home, maybe you're even meeting them in person, how do you recognize the ability of someone to be, a good speaker? Obviously you can talk to them about that, but how can you recognize whether or not they have the willingness to do the creativity that we talked about, whether or not they're doing stuff to maintain their mental acuity? How do you gauge that from the outside?
Well, I don't know if you can gauge it from the outside. First, if you're a leader of an organization, make sure you're modeling this yourself. And then provide, encourage, and incentivize people for wellness, for new learning. I work with real businesses. This is what my clients do. We establish a wellness program. We pay for people's gym membership. They have to actually go and use it, though, if they want to get. We have one of my clients in New Jersey. We actually brought on an expert in stress and resilience, a physician who's there to do one-on-one sessions with any of the employees of the company as needed. And believe me, a lot of people have needed it, especially over the last 7 or 8 months. And what this does is, the health and the wellness. Again, it's the energy of your employees. When people feel that their leadership is looking after them, that genuinely cares about their well-being, they tend to love their company more. They tend to want to do a better job. And you don't lose as many people for sick days and illness. So it just makes sense. And if you want to, this client of mine, everybody's got to deal with new technology and new ways of working, and doing everything, having client meetings online, on Zoom, on various platforms. So learning, change, adaptation are critical for a business to have as a culture, as a value. And you don't want to start trying to develop that value when a pandemic or a financial crisis happens. You want to have it be part of your culture. So you're encouraging people to learn and grow and develop, and you're providing training and development opportunities for them. And that's the world I've been in throughout my career. People love it, and it helps them adapt and do a better job. You imagine, I've seen quite a few changes in the workplace in over 40 years of being engaged with real companies, and the need to be able to learn, change, think creatively, communicate effectively, probably greater than ever now than before.
Yeah, as far as the topic of vulnerability, this is an area that you also discuss at length in one of your books. Can you talk a little bit about vulnerability and whether it's a weakness, which many men think it is, and many people in general think it is, or could it be one of our greatest powers?
Yeah, thanks for asking this one, because I'm not a fan of the V word. Vulnerability, it comes from the root vulnerare, which means to wound. So when people say, oh, you need to be more vulnerable, I don't think so. I really don't think that's good advice. Oh, yeah, let people wound you more. That's a great idea. I don't think so. I think what people are really trying to say is be open, be present, be respectful, be willing to consider empathically other perspectives. That actually makes you less vulnerable, less likely to be wounded, and more likely to make a real connection with other people, because they feel that you are genuinely caring and open and empathic for them. And that's everybody wants to feel heard and understood and respected. So I say, let's delete the V word and use openness or accessible or responsive instead.
I'm a fan. I think that's a better term to use. So good way to end this discussion. Michael Gelb, thank you so much for joining us on the Work From Home Show. I listed all the books at the beginning. I'll just tell our listeners, go to Amazon, type in Michael Gelb. You can see all of his great books that are available for sale. But I will mention his new book, Mastering the Art of Public Speaking, 8 Secrets to Transform Fear and Supercharge Your Career. The website is michaelgelb.com, michaelgelb.com. Michael, any final thoughts you want to share with our listeners or anything else you want to promote or plug?
Oh, thanks, guys. Yeah, well, michaelgelb.com is also the best place to get the books, because they're all right there with really good descriptions of each one. And they're actually easier to get via michaelgelb.com. Plus, you'll also get lots of really cool free articles, free videos. And the thing I'm most excited about these days is we're about to launch the How to Think Like Leonardo da Vinci online video seminar. So at michaelgelb.com, you'll see a bar that says online video. Click on that, sign up to be notified as soon as it's available. It's, of all these things I've crafted and created, it's something I probably put the most love and energy and passion into this video. So it gives people a chance on their device, at home, on their computer, on their TV, to go through what is the equivalent of a 2 or 3 day live seminar with me and Leonardo.
Very good.
Last place to go to hang out with Leonardo, right?
Yeah.
Excellent. Well, that's michaelgelb.com, michaelgelb.com. And to all our listeners, check out our website, workfromhomeshow.com. Check out all of our previous episodes. We have done a ton since we got started in March of 2020. Leave us a review on iTunes, TuneIn, Stitcher, Spotify, whatever podcasting platform you listen to us. And if you have any questions, hello@workfromhomeshow.com. Questions for me, Adam, even for Michael, if you want us to relay it to him. If you're too afraid to reach out to him directly at michaelgelb.com, just shoot us a note. hello@workfromhomeshow.com. And until next time, keep on working from home.